pensamiento, no es eterno el sufrimiento, va el pueblo su voz alzando, que no nos siga matando, del rico su daga hiriente, su voracidad creciente, no nos siga aniquilando. Compañero, escuche mis sentimientos y que viaje con el viento. Este anhelo guerrillero. Sé que pienso porque existo, sé que existo con un sueño que es mi sueño, un mismo empeño y desempeño, no desisto. Compañero, escuche mis sentimientos y que viaje con el viento. Este anhelo guerrillero. Si de los pueblos
I come from me in the stand. I'm in the field and you just sit in the stands. Take that bass out your voice. If you ain't got no gun in your hand, I do what I want. And you don't even do what you can, you do what you told. I got no love for my foes. They can mimic my delivery and copy my prose. But what they can't comprehend is how I stick to this code. It's either in you or not. It's not the kicks and the clothes. They ain't cut from the same cloth. Can't come from the same loom. Fit in similar shapes or even sit in the same room. Confusing authenticity with part of the costume. I'm teaching gifted children. You can't come in this classroom.
Dare to struggle, dare to win.
Hey. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, everything messed up. We late. Knocking out the cameras. Peace, everybody. Welcome back to Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, episode 32. Geechee, y'all. And who we got here? The superstar. What's your name again?
Cherie Danielle.
Everybody asking to see you. Everybody excited to see you.
Oh, really?
Getting torn all across the country and stuff.
Funny.
What's up, chat? How y'all feeling?
Sorry for the delay. I was in rehearsal.
No worries. We want to welcome y'all to Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, which is a radical Black politics podcast from CNB's Vantage Point. And we're here on Black Liberation Media, where you have all the other shows that you can watch throughout the week. But we thank you for being here today. Make sure you copy this link and paste it to a friend who probably be talking about financial literacy or even healthcare and health industries and all those things. This is going to be an interesting conversation with one of our good sisters, Dr. Erika, coming on later on at 6:15. But before we get in there, Cherie, what you got going on other than rehearsing? How you feeling? I know the show's coming up.
Feeling good, as good as I can. Just had a virtual thing with my director. We were in the theater yesterday. So I don't know. It's getting close, guys. Also trying to balance this new job I got. I'm like, I low-key want to tell my boss, like, just hold out a little bit. Wait till I come back after this break next week, and then I'll do the job right. But it's going to be a little shaky for now. But hopefully I don't get fired. But I think I'll be straight.
Nah, don't they got a probational period where you can?
Yeah, this is training. But yesterday, you know how they be getting sometimes. Them white folks in power. They be like, he's looking at my stats like, oh, so yeah, what were you doing during this time? I'm like, oh, they really watching me at this job. But yeah, I'm my third week, so I'm still technically training. But I feel like, he's just trying to set a tone for how stuff should be once I'm really in motion. But, I'm off all next week for the show. So hopefully when I get back, I'll be able to lock in, so that it looks like I'm working hard, Not that I'm working hard.
You talking about look like? So you be acting at work too?
My best performance.
Shit, crazy, bro. Man, listen, we got a bunch of things going on in the next few weeks. I've been in this book, Brian Coble book about Hubert Harrison. Now, I've been asking him to publish it for years now, and he finally did. But with that event coming up, and then obviously the your event, and then the Morehouse event. But I've been in this book, man, and uh, his he keeps asking me what I think about the free love chapter, and I'm like, cool, but like the most interesting chapter is like the conversation between Hubert Harrison, or the relationship between Hubert Harrison and Garvey, um, which I knew a little bit about. Like we all knew, like Harrison is who Garvey came to first get started when he came to Harlem. He joined Hubert Harrison's organization. But what I didn't know was like the dynamics, like when Harrison organization fell because of financial only supported by black folks, Garvey, started propping up his organization, and he took a lot of politics, including race first, from Garvey. But there was always this like contention between the two. Like he was even Garvey's editor of Negro World for a while, and grew this membership and all these other things. But the ego and all the conflicts that they struggle with has been fascinating. So I'm like really excited to have that conversation because honestly, it just seems like typical org stuff, and this is in 1920s. So it's like the typical shit. And even I remember there was this, I was in Nicaragua and somebody was asking me a question around like, what's going on with BAP and PSL? Like, why they beefing? And I, at the time, I wasn't really sure. I mean, I knew a particular line, but that argument is there in the 1920s where so Hubert left the white socialists because they didn't have a race analysis. And he realized that even though they have a class analysis, they always wanted to put their race first. So he started developing or being more intentional about race first, which give Garvey this line of race first, but then Garvey them don't really want to fuck with class. So the black socialists, after Hubert left the Socialist Party, they started coming at Garvey for his they'll call it reactionary race first politics. But Hubert was defending him, but also still having conflicts with Garvey on his racial position. I mean, his class position, which he was leaning more towards black capitalism and exploitation. And he just got a couple lines in there about businesses, and we might can get into it later on. That just, again, it's just like almost like him and Jared Bennett conversation. And then obviously, like you get to see how at one point Hubert was like at the iteration of NAACP, he was saying like, yo, that's the wrong line. And he was saying that for W.E. Du Bois and Booker T. And while they fighting, and he's like, well, both of y'all are actually wrong. And then as the boys get older, he realized like, yo, actually Hubert was right. We both was wrong. So just like seeing some of that stuff was pretty interesting, and also seeing how a confrontational person can get left out of history really quickly because he's just not like the one that's gonna bite his tongue. So, as you cultural workers, he was into poetry too, so he was kind of a culture worker, and why a lot of culture workers started. But as you culture workers know, in organization, trying to develop a strategy to be confrontational and push your organization to its ideals seems like a forever plague of ours. So I'm looking forward to that joint.
Wow. Yeah, that seems like really spot on. I really hope I get a chance to like get a little bit into the book before I go to the actual talk back, book talk. I mean, because yeah, that seems like something really spot on. But yeah, I think it definitely connects to even my show where I'm just like, dang, this is like really right on the money. As far as like that whole class, race, and just like I guess always trying to build some sort of analysis on that. But yeah, I think for me, it's just even right now, it's just there's the internal stuff, but then I think it's so much when you're trying to get people involved externally, people that don't organize, who have never heard the politics. It's just that's kind of what I think I've been kind of, as I push this show, what I've been thinking about. Like I got interviewed by my dad's friend on Sunday, and like with that, he didn't really have like, or kind of have, I don't know if my dad warned him. I don't think my dad really warned him kind of where I was politically. And it's like, the article ended up, turning out okay, but just asking the questions, I could tell he was very much just shooken up by like a lot of the things I was saying. So it's quite interesting, too, because we had talked about cults some last week on this network, and I feel like, when you are an organizer or black radical or leftist or whatever, I think you start to get you sometimes you can get mental illness questions, and then you get these cult questions. Which, like I said, is I mean, I do have a mental illness, and I'll, proudly talk about that, but the whole cult thing, he started asking me, he's like, have you ever heard of a cult or whatever? And it's like, it's like, yeah, I think I was actually in one. He's like, how long ago was that? Because you could tell he's like thinking I'm in some sort of cult just because I'm standing really strong in my politics, and wanting to do art for collective liberation. But then I ended up telling him, I was like, it's really interesting how people process this cult thing, because as a cultural worker, I often think of that, because yeah, I don't think I'm in a cult, but I'm a cultural worker. But I think what I do to somebody that, to the unknown ears or people that have never heard of these things, it can come across very cult like to them, because they live in such a high level white hegemonic dominant culture, that if you're on the outside of that or talk about things on the outside of that, to them it seems like a cult. But then I was like, I was talking about policing and the military and all these other things. We had a conversation about Cop City, and yeah, it's just like, it's very interesting how people don't look at the idolization of police, or the way people view the military, or just a lot of things that people put on a pedestal, capitalism, everything in America, how people don't view that as like a cult way of thinking, So, so yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what I've been thinking about.
No, I think that's interesting, because even as like when you think about, I guess, organizations and how people are introduced to organizations now, maybe a lot of times it's online. And if somebody has like a major online presence, people will join organizations for personality. And so when you think about cult and culture, like a cult of personality is like a large thing to actually get through, or get or rid in an organization, based off of how people receive the organization. And now, before we bring the guests on, like, so for instance, one of the things where like we obviously, even as I'm on campus passing out flyers and canvassing for the event, and I'm in barbershops, like I'll be like, you ever heard of Hubert Harrison? No. You heard of Garvey though? Yeah, I heard of Garvey. Well, it wouldn't be a Garvey if this, and then we have this conversation, because there's a cult of personality that he had even then that like it's still, still here. So one of the things that Hubert was talking about, because he was there around almost for everything. To start, he was there for the eventual conventions. He was like, at one point he was saying like we had this international conference, and Garvey kept saying there was delegates from different countries. And they say even he kept referring to me, the gentleman from the Virgin Islands. He said, nigga, I've been here for 20 years. Like, so then he started naming people's countries. He's like, no, we've been here for 5 years. Like, nobody was delegates, but it came to a point where Garvey's like, it was 4 million UNIA members. And first, Hubert's was like, them numbers ain't correct. And even his second wife, not the first Amy, but the second Amy, was like, she broke it down. She said basically, Garvey movement was so big that even people who was in study groups who subscribed to Garveyism, he counted as his members in the organization. So you can be like little James and John study group. He was like, oh, those two people who are Garvey as UNIA. And then so she tried to explain it. And then Hubert was like, Hubert said like, well, that's a nice way to explain it. But to simply put, Garvey plastered the air with lies. And so it's like, but anyway, it's just like this thing of like really, somebody who's there who literally tried to struggle with the cult of personality in the organization, and the racism in the white organization. And, ultimately, I won't say this person wasn't fit for an organization, but it was hard for them to be in an organization because of his desire to struggle with internal contradictions, which is seemingly almost impossible at times. So, anyway, that's a lot. That's for another conversation. We're going to get into a break, so we bring our good sister up. So stay tuned. We'll be right back and have our sister.
I'm throwing copper at the coppers, but I'm shaking like Morocco. Say my prayers with the pistol, serve the sinners with the chopper. All my buddies got it from scratch. My house had Betty Crocker. His mama owned D. He ain't even get no shot of. Profit is invisible. Profit come from product. He thinking buffet. He can't comprehend no potluck. God bless the child with his own powder to rock.
Welcome back. Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win. Episode 32. We are sitting here with Miss Erika Brown. Doctor. Can I call you doctor?
Not yet. No,
Good Lord,
don't.
doctor.
No, don't
Doctor,
ruin it
that's
yet.
what says, future Dr. Erika Brown.
No,
Yeah.
man, she a good doctor. Listen,
Thank you.
how you feeling? How
I'm
you
good. Thank y'all for inviting me here. Cherie, it's nice to meet you. I do have a question about this show. I don't know about this show that you're in. I'm interested to know what's happening.
So
Oh.
what's happening? CMB Community Movement Builders.
Was I asking you though, Geechee?
Oh, you talking about this show? I thought you talking about other show. My bad. I'm gonna shut up. I'm mute myself right now.
No.
She just wanted to know really quick about the cultural workers got something to say, and it is a CMB political education committee produced event, and it'll feature my solo show, Afro Goddess Part 2, Revolutionary Love, and it'll also feature a two-man show written by Jihad Abdulhamid and Mumit. Sorry, I always say that wrong. My bad. Abdul Mumit. And it's called The Shootout. And yeah, don't LOL me, but yeah, and it's a two-man show about just a lot of things, like the history from kind of internal contradiction within the race brought on through white supremacy. My show is a tale of two sisters in afterlife and their different concept of liberation, and they kind of go head to head in the end, and we end up landing, on a very BLM side of things, of course. It's happening October 3rd through the 4th in Atlanta, Georgia. But hopefully I can bring it other places down the line.
Fantastic. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And the only other thing I will say, like I said, I'm it's nice to meet you, but please don't get fired in this economy. That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
I know.
I won't, but I'm really good at getting jobs. And I shouldn't say that. I don't know if that's bad to say that, but I'm really good at interviews. Like, I'm keeping a job, not so much, but I can work an interview. And it's like, this happens every time I get a job. There's always a little bit of disappointment, and then they have to somewhat adjust, because it's like, yeah. Because I think in the interview, I'm like, I'll give my soul to this company. And then once I'm there, I'm like, yeah, what's up? And so there's always a little adjustment, but then they end up liking me, my personality. They're like, okay, it works, so that's kind of how it goes.
Okay. Well, good. I'm sorry. You didn't ask me any of that. And unsolicited advice is not good. But anyway, so I'm sorry, Geechee.
No, my bad. I know who you're here to see. It's all good.
Geechee's hosting the event too.
Don't worry about my event. It's all good. She only here to talk to you and see you, because she told me
I'm just saying, Geechee,
she wasn't gonna come talk to me if you wasn't here. That's what she told me.
She see you all the time. She always talking to you. Like, I'm still new to the network a little bit, and I love some brokish. I just wanted to say shout out to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
So Erika has been working, as everybody know, on some really important work. Not only did she come all the way to Atlanta on the ground to investigate this but you have produced this recent article, When Financial Knowledge Isn't Power, how race disrupt financial literacy's relationship to health precarity. So maybe if you can tell us just a little bit about what you and your co-author has laid out there, we can get started like that.
Sure. So for anybody who doesn't know, I'll introduce myself. So I am Erika Brown. I'm also a PhD student at Texas Women's University studying sociology. And one of the things that happens in sociology is that we just really don't care or cover or think about this idea of financial literacy, right? Which is interesting to me because financial literacy and financial matters are something that everybody has to contend with, right? So we're all out here trying to figure out how we can make it work, taking jobs we don't like, trying to figure out how we can pay our bills so that we can do the things that we actually want to do. And so, one of the things that happen as it relates to money is that money is so entrenched in all of these other aspects of our lives. So, whether that's the mundane things we do, like we've got all the apps on our phone to manage our money, to more complex things like retirement, but also healthcare. And so, what we find is that people make decisions about healthcare, which is really sad, based on if they have the money or not, right? So y'all know that in the United States, where we do not have universal health care, shout out to Barack Obama, so where we don't have access to universal health care, what we have for many people is we have healthcare tied to your employment, which for employers is great, and for employees makes everything just more precarious. And so essentially, to like make a long story maybe a little bit shorter, is that I had access to this data set that is actually available widely. And I was looking through this data set, and one of the things I saw is they ask people questions about, are there times when you didn't go to the doctor because you didn't have money? Are there times when you didn't get a prescription filled because you didn't have money? And are there times when you didn't get a procedure because you didn't have money? And so people are answering, those questions. And so because I'm interested in financial literacy, I saw a connection there. I'm like, people tell us that financial literacy is supposed to save us from all of these bad things that can happen to us, right? Like if you just go out and get financial literacy, then your financial situation will be enhanced. So I was just curious about, based on this data, is it really true that if you have higher levels of financial literacy, does it also keep you from having to make these really hard choices of not going to the doctor, not filling a prescription, not having procedures because you don't have money? And so essentially this paper is looking at what does that mean overall, but then specifically, if you are Black, what does that mean? So what is the relationship between financial literacy and this idea of health precarity, which is sort of the combination of those three things together? What is that relationship overall to everybody, but what is the relationship for different racial and ethnic categories?
So I think I might have had you tell me if I was being financially literate or not, right? So in my Chef Boyardee time, I was making some food and doing all the stuff, and I actually almost cut my damn finger off. I cut a nail off on the side, and I was trying to get it to stop bleeding. It wouldn't bleed it, stop bleeding, and I was like, oh, let me go to the, emergency room to see if they can get me good. And I don't have insurance, so I'm like, how much they gonna charge? The lady at the desk was like, I don't know, I don't know this number. And then when the first lady brought me back to see it, I'm thinking like, how much is it gonna cost? And I'm saying like, it's probably $1,000. She's like, yeah, it's gonna be $3,000. And I thought she was joking. I was like, you joking? She said, no. I said, what? I said, like, I'm not about to know. And she was like, well, it already started bleeding, so you'll be good. It'll heal in a couple of days. You can deny services right now. Because if you go through it, it's going to be $3,000. And I was like, oh, okay. And I walked out. And then, but again, was that a financial literate? Did I make the right choice? I didn't make, an investment into this, whatever the hell it is. But so I'm curious if one, that's kind of like, I guess, talked about in the study, as you said, like asking people why they didn't make just choices to engage healthcare system. But then maybe if you can kind of talk about largely like what did y'all argue are the ultimate determinants of financial outcomes? Like what creates financial outcomes if it's not our individual choices to do or not do?
So just in terms of, sadly, the decision that you had to make are decisions that people have to make every day, right? Like there's this calculus of, if something happens to me, is it worth me getting the help? Which is just a very sad situation to have to be in, right? It shouldn't be a matter of, am I going to get an infection? Is my finger going to fall off? Do I really need stitches in order for you to get help? Right now, in research, right, there are always limitations. In this research, the biggest limitation is that this is a publicly available data set, right? So we weren't asking the questions. We weren't talking to the people. There wasn't any follow-up or anything like that. So what I know is just if people did those things. Now, when we're looking at these relationships to see how financial literacy might affect you doing or not doing one of these three things because you didn't have money, we're looking at other things that we're controlling for, right? And so the things that we control for are, do you have health insurance? And you would think that's a big thing, right? So people with health insurance, you would think that they are more likely, right, to be able to go and do these things just because they have access to health insurance. Whereas people who don't have access like you, then the decisions are even more challenging, right? Absolutely, it's a financial decision. If you have healthcare, it's like, how much of a financial decision is it? We also looked at, of course, race, we looked at gender, we looked at education, we looked at income. So those are all the sorts of things that we were controlling for when we're looking at some of these like overall relationships of things that are happening. And ultimately, what my goal is not that I'm a financial literacy hater, not that I think it's bad to manage your money and have a budget and do all these things, but there are other things that are just more important to whether or not you are able to do something like go and get healthcare. And in your case, Geechee, I would say the more important thing is, do you have money, right? Do you have a savings? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have access to people who can help you with money if you need it? Like, all of those things are more important than, do you know the difference between the relationship between interest rates and bond rates? Like, at the end of the day, like, that's the difference. And so it's sort of hard based on the limited data in the data set, because the data set doesn't give me data about some of those other things that I guess inherently I know that those things are more important. Like, if you have money, if you have the right connections. Like, for example, I have a friend who's a doctor. And when things happened to her, she was like, yeah, I just called a friend and ordered an MRI, literally, right? And you can do that when you know people who are doctors. So there are just other things that are, I think, way more important to whether or not you're able to get, or whether or not you are in a state of health precarity, than if you have a high level of financial literacy, right? And in fact, according to the research that we did, if you're Black, having a higher level of financial literacy doesn't help you at all as compared to white people. Like, it just wasn't helpful. So you could have, according to this, the highest level of financial literacy, and still your probability of falling into one of these precarious situations is just as high as somebody with the lowest level of financial literacy. Like, it just doesn't matter. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, it's just been interesting, these conversations around financial literacy, because sometimes I feel like, especially watching Brokish, like, do I even really know what financial literacy is supposed to be, at the end of the day? Because it's like, it sounds like what people are saying, oh, just spend your money better. But I feel like everybody I know does that, or tries their best to like spend within what they have, for the most part. And then on the other end, they'll say that's what it is. But when people teach a financial literacy course or put up something like an invest fest, it's more about how to do your Bitcoin, how to do your stock stuff, how to, like, it's nothing about like, like, to me, I feel like I've never actually seen a financial literacy course that's really like geared towards, okay, this is how much you make, like, this is how much your rent is, and like, this is how I would recommend you organize it or something. It seems like the way that people sell financial literacy is all these other elements that I feel like, on a wide scale, don't matter if you don't have any finances to begin with. So I guess I'm just curious to see, like, what is your actual definition of financial literacy, and how would you say one is supposed to attempt to teach financial literacy?
Yeah, so here's the problem with financial literacy, is that financial literacy actually doesn't have this agreed upon definition. So there are these organizations like the Organization for Economic Development, like around the world, the OECD. They have a definition. If you go to your local bank, they'll tell you a definition of financial literacy. All these different people have all these different definitions. So one of the things we tried to do in the article is that we were like, the problem with a lot of financial literacy is that it focuses on the individual, right? So it's talking to you. And financial literacy is like, it is your fault. It is your responsibility, right? but the shit that's happening around us is structural, right? So the fact that we don't know from one day to the next what the tariff situation is looking like, right? Like I was trying to buy me this little crochet crop top from somebody that was in Jamaica. And she was like, girl, the tariffs. And I'm like, look, I don't know. When am I getting my crop top? And so all these things are happening at like micro levels, but it all affects us, right? So everybody knows inflation is up, the wages are not. And so we're talking about what you're doing with financial literacy, but we're not talking about all the stuff around us. So what we say is that we're defining financial literacy as the ability to optimize financial decisions based on one's available resources and understanding of national and world economic systems, including their position within them. And so essentially what we were trying to get at is that if you are in a system that is capitalist, you need to know that you're in a system that's capitalist, right? You got to start there. And you have to know how your power gets limited because you are in a capitalist system. And you have to understand that your ability to manage your finances is limited also by the available resources that you have to you. You might have the best intentions, you might have all the best information, know what you want to do. But at the end of the day, if Geechee don't have $3,000, Geechee don't have $3,000. And he cannot financial literate his way out of the fact that he don't have $3,000 to give to somebody for something that I think we can probably all agree should not cost $3,000 to resolve. And so that's what we are basically trying to bring together is we're trying to bridge the gap between my individual responsibility, because I do believe that there is some individual responsibility you can have, right? Like I'm making decisions every day about like, so in our family, our rule is Sunday through Thursday, we eat at home, right? So we're cooking at home, we buy all the things, we don't eat out except when it's on the weekends. And that's like a decision that we make to try to like manage finances and like keep control of. So there's some small things you can do, right? But we want people to connect that to the bigger issues. We want them to connect that to the structural issues. We want them to connect what's happening here in the United States to what's happening in other parts of the world, because capitalism is a global system, which is why my crop top is having all this trouble. So ultimately that's the goal. And so we were just using this idea of health precarity as one way to look at how financial literacy doesn't stand up to what everybody tells us it's going to do. And so to the point of like InvestFest and all of these things, I think you said it because you said they're selling things. And so with a lot of what you get packaged as financial literacy and financial education today is other people that's just trying to sell stuff because they caught in the same capitalist system. And unfortunately, sometimes that means that we have to take advantage of each other. And that's what you see people doing, is taking advantage of each other because they are trying to make their own money so that they won't fall prey and have to make the same hard decisions that other people are having to make. And so in a really like in the most academic sense, as I'm working on my dissertation, I'm looking at like the relationships between racial capitalism and neoliberalism and what they call the financialization of everyday life, which is this idea of, they sold us this idea that everything is now a profit opportunity, right? So it's not that there's been a shift and we have fewer protections. It's no, now you have power. And so with this fake power, you have all of these things coming together. And ultimately that gets packaged as, here's financial literacy. And in terms of what financial literacy should be, there are some people who study that and they talk about financial literacy should be sort of just in time. So if you're not thinking about having children right now, then y'all are not necessarily, you don't need to know about college plans, or you don't need to know about planning for your children's future, all this sorts of thing, because you're not at that point in your life, right? So maybe what you need right now is you just started a new job, and so they're offering you some offerings for financial, like for 401ks, and so maybe you need some retirement planning or something like that. So it's like what you need at the point where you are is kind of financial literacy that people have found to be helpful, but also financial literacy that's culturally competent. So in my research for my dissertation, a lot of people mentioned Dave Ramsey, but a lot of people also said, but Dave Ramsey is not for us. What Dave Ramsey is doing is not for Black people. So what's the thing that's for Black people? And that's what we need to do. And as I'm thinking about this, I'm also wondering, if there's an opportunity to, like, in a very informal way, to start to plan some of those things that we can do for the people in terms of financial literacy that can be helpful for the people, but that isn't trying to sell you a course, that isn't trying to give you information about things that aren't helpful to you. So, Geechee, I don't know if that's something that we can think about or plan for in the future, but
Yeah. No, I think that's fascinating. And by all means, you're watching Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, episode 32. We're talking to Erika Brown. So as you was talking, I started thinking about. I just had a meeting with some of the elders who we identified as leaders of the tenant association that we're building, and all of them, although they all have the same landlord and live in the same building, there's like some type of stratification between their economic condition. Like one of the elders was like, well, not all of us have to live here. I sold my house to do this thing, blah, blah. And I'm like, I didn't really get into the detail because I don't know why you sold your house. If it was a taxes thing, it was the repairs or whatever it is. But I do know you're in the same situation where, this landlord is waging rent war on you. And then they talk about like, well, there's a stipend that you get to pay your utilities. And some people who don't got their utilities paid, it's because they're lazy. And you just got to go through the portal. And it's like, there's just like these conversations that's happening. And so I'm curious, before I even get to for you to respond, there's a part in your work. It says people face complex financial decisions with potentially long-lasting consequences at all stages of their life. As young people grow into adulthood, they make decisions about loans for college tuition, cars, and houses, along with how to manage credit cards, health, and other kinds of insurance, and living within a budget. The shift from defined benefits to defined contribution retirement plans implies that ordinary people must now show the decisions about savings, investings, and more. So I think I want you to flesh out like maybe the individual responsibility that if is there in the idea of financial literacy versus political literacy and economic literacy, maybe like organizing for a different society. But I wonder what comes up, and I'm trying to be broad as possible for you to respond to it, but I wonder what comes up when you think about like everybody's situation is like they're unique, and even the person who claimed to have more financial literacy, they might have the capacity to take a bigger loan out from the bank, but they still like paying mortgage versus the person who's paying rent. So yeah, I don't know if you have a thought or response.
well, you tell me if I'm taking this in the right direction or not. But yes, it's called personal finance because it is very personal, right? Everybody's got a different situation going on. But for the most part, I mean, some of this shit is just standard. But the big thing for me that I like to point out is just that it is obscure on purpose. So it's like meant to be difficult for us to understand. When you get a new job and then they tell you that you are choosing between, oh, we have a 401k and we have a Roth 401k. And you're like, I don't know what the difference between a 401k and a Roth 401k is, and whatever. Or they tell you we have a healthcare plan that's a PPO, but we have a high deductible healthcare plan. You like, I don't know the difference between a regular healthcare plan and a high deductible healthcare plan, right? And so you have to then act like this expert in all of these areas. And when you're not able to do that, then people point the finger at you. So then if you happen to miss open enrollment or you happen to not sign up within 30 days just because you didn't know that that's what you were supposed to do, you're new to this, then it's like, it's your failure as opposed to the failure of the system for making this shit so complicated. The fact that you have to sign up within 30 days or then all the benefits just disappear. And then if you don't make changes, like I used to work for my university and then my fellowship was up. So I have 30 days for a life event. Well, everybody don't know that they got 30 days for a life event, right? So you get a letter in the mail that tells you about some COBRA that's $1,500 a month, but you're like, that's ridiculous. So it's just like on purpose, people don't know. But then also one of the things that we do in relation to money that I'm learning through talking to folks, for in the interviews for my dissertation is that there is a lot of judgment around money because money is melded in morality. So oftentimes people feel good or bad about themselves, or they feel like they are morally righteous because they might have money versus when they don't have money. So it's easy for me to point to you as, you know, you're not able to pay your electricity bill, but I'm able to pay mine, and not caring about all the other reasons that might have kept me from not being able to pay mine versus you being able to pay yours. And so at the end of the day, I do think that political education is super helpful in all of this, because if you understand how all the political pieces fit together, then you understand that this is just something else to confuse you. So in the same way that you have to work 60 hours now in order to be able to get one job that barely pays your bills, and that wasn't true in the same way 20 or 30 years ago, and now everything is more complicated in different ways than it was before. Like, these are all ways that the system sets itself up to trick us and to make things hard for us. And so I just want to encourage all of us to have just a lot more compassion for each other. Do I think there's some individual responsibility? Yes, I do. I don't think that's the biggest component of all the things that are going on, though. So do I think that if you don't have McDonald's money, maybe you shouldn't go to McDonald's? Yes. But I mean, sometimes you just want a certain thing too, right? Like, you have to save room for your humanity. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
Whew, yeah, you was just saying so much in both answers that I'm like, I really identify with that a lot, because I think, yeah, I'm just thinking about how the way financial literacy is sold to us a lot, and how it's never what you actually need. Like, I don't care about your new Bitcoin NFT or stock thing. I just want to know which healthcare I'm supposed to pick, because I don't, me being new, this is like my second job where like there's like a healthcare provided with the job. And so I was just going through that, like literally week before last, like up at 12 a.m. trying to figure out which healthcare is the one that's
You should have called me.
gonna cover my therapy. I think I picked the right one, because I'm getting a little bit used to this. But the first time, like when I first started working in corporate or whatever, the first healthcare, I picked the wrong healthcare. And it's like, I was over here like, yeah, I got this job, and they taking this amount out for, and I got a healthcare. And then I realized it wasn't going to cover the main thing I needed, which was therapy. So then I had to wait a whole nother year to get the specific therapy I wanted for the specific price, because the plan that I got was not the PPO. And I didn't, they had some sort of robot, probably AI, that was supposed to be helping me as I was doing it, because I'm like, okay, I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't, and they don't really think to ask the specific questions that you would need. Like, they didn't ask me anything about therapy or whatever, so I didn't even think about that when I'm picking the thing. So I picked the wrong health.
And oftentimes therapy is like a whole different set too, like set apart from your health insurance. But think about how crazy it is that we are essentially having to gamble on our health. So as you're going through that, you're like, I'm young, I'm relative, like, you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, this is crazy. They are making us roll the dice.
They're like, basically, and that was the whole thing. They assume based on my age, and if I didn't have any like physical illness or whatever, they're like, okay, well then this is the healthcare that makes sense for you. But they didn't ask anything about my mental health or whatever. So I'm just like, well then I can't get the therapy that I wanted, I thought I would get. And it just put me in like a whole different, situation. And then also where you live does, make a difference as well too, because for the longest I was pretty much on my parents' healthcare, and that's an access thing. I was on my parents' healthcare till I was like 27, and then I was still 20, maybe 26. I can't remember. I
26
think
was the cutoff.
Yeah, okay, yeah, 26. And then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, okay, I got to figure out how to get healthcare. And in New York, it was so much easier. It's like, okay, I make this much. I have the person whose room I rent say, oh, she pays this much for rent. And then it's like, okay, here's my healthcare. I get the Medicare, and it's all easy. And I thought that would be the way I get healthcare.
Nope. No.
I moved to Atlanta.
Did you move to Atlanta? Oh, no, ma'am.
And I moved to Atlanta, and I'm from Atlanta, but I never had to deal with the healthcare in Atlanta, because I moved to New York at 18. So then when I moved to Atlanta at like 28, and I'm trying to get healthcare for the first time or whatever. They're asking me all these things, asking all this information that I never had to answer in New York. And I knew then that I wasn't going to actually get a good help because I didn't pay anything in New York. And so once I came to Atlanta and I was less off, like in New York, I at least had a job or something. When I moved to Atlanta, I had no job, nothing. I'm living with my parents. Then it gets to, well, how much do your parents make every year? What car do your parents? And it's like, well, I'm not going to be able to do nothing if I tell you that my stepdaddy got the doggone Tesla. Like, y'all not going to give me nothing.
But that's where the political education part comes in, because you understand that from state to state, right? Like how you're in a very red state. What does that mean? How does Medicare access get shut off when the governors are like, we just don't want it. We don't want the federal funds. Keep them because we don't want to insure people, right? Like we just don't want to do that.
Yeah, that was just crazy, man. I was like, so I'm going to have to really pay for healthcare is what you're saying. And then I don't even have a job. Then when I finally did find something that seemed cheap, I didn't understand the rules once again. So I think the first healthcare I ever actually had to pay for, I'm paying like $100 and something a month. But then I didn't know. I immediately went to the doctors. I was like, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to go to the gynecologist. I'm going to get everything. And I didn't hear till like afterwards that like, oh, you have to wait 8 months before all this kicks in. So then I'm getting sent all these bills. And I'm like, y'all not ever getting that money. I'm not paying y'all for these x-rays. And, like they still be sending my mama stuff. I'm like, y'all not getting that. Like, it's cool. But but I guess my question is sorry, that's a lot of comment, but I feel like the question that I guess I'm asking is like, well, could it seems like because we live in this capitalist system that the people that are selling financial literacy can never really be 100% legit. Because I'm just looking at it from a sales thing. It's like you would need a specific to sit down, have one person at a time, certain times of the year maybe, and maybe that would be the way that you conduct your business. You're seriously helping people specifically with their financial thing and how to pick a right healthcare, the stuff that people actually need, as opposed to like the NFT get rich quick, learn about stock, where I can be like, I learned about this stock and now I make $100,000 and I can teach you. Like that's such a quicker way to actually sell things, as opposed to being like, oh, I can help you one by one. If you sign up, you get a new job, contact me. Like, and so that's why I just think like there's no way in this system that, people who want to help can always help. But as far as like trying to set yourself up to be a successful business person in America, like I'm just like, how can you be legit? And I feel like that, to me, that's kind of what the research kind of points out too, is like, obviously the person that's selling a financial literacy course is going to go for the thing where they could teach it easily, be like it appeals as an opportunity to 50 plus people to be able to actually get money, as opposed to like, I'm going to help you one by one. Then it, like I said, it's going to take longer. You may not see a roll around for profit. So I think that's the irony of financial literacy in capitalism. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm just like, is it kind of pointing out that like there's no honest way to do this unless you truly want to help people?
So I think that there are some people who do a decent job. So let's start here. First of all, I think we have to remember that financial literacy is literacy, right? And so just like when you're learning how to read, there are levels to this. And so what happens is I think the levels oftentimes we get exposed to are things like Forex or crypto or NFTs, but that's like calculus, and we're not ready for that, right? So for the people who are, I think, doing a decent job, like there's somebody called the Budgetnista. And so I know a lot of people follow her. And because she's been doing this for a long amount of time, you can go and then you can get tips for how to do those sort of introductory things, right? The things that if you're just starting out, if you're starting a new job and you need to know how to do these things around retirement or healthcare or whatever the case may be. And so I think that there are people like her who've managed to figure out how do we help people at these different milestones in their life to be able to do the things that they need to do. But overwhelmingly, what we find is that in this system, to your point, because people are trying to make money, the latest way you make money is through content and packaging it. So that's what you see, all the things. You see all the people packaging content, right? Saying they're writing books, using ChatGPT to write books, and then sell them to people to teach them how to do stuff that you can go find out how to do on YouTube. So I think that's really the point, is that I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because I don't think it's all bad. Like, I literally had a meeting with my financial planner today. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I'm very much about my money. So I'm not going to lie to you and tell you not to be about yours. But I want us to just be realistic about how that looks. And so, yes, I think it is hard for people to make a good living by just helping other people to maneuver this. And that's why I think because the piece I was writing on Earn Your Leisure never saw the light of day, but I did sort of like an analysis on them. And if you see their work at the beginning, it was actually, to me, it seemed genuine. Like, they really wanted to pivot from helping students do financial literacy and learning about their money to helping the parents, so that the parents could do like a better job of managing the finances of their households. And so, but then you could kind of see how they took the turn. And that was interesting to watch, just as an observer. You could see where it went from they were just doing this on their dining room tables, trying to help people, to when the light bulb went off for them and they were like, oh, this is the business and we can do this. And then they went in that direction. And I think that's just what happens to everybody in most things, right? Most of us start off doing a thing and we're trying to take it in one direction, but then the lure of capitalism takes its hold. And sometimes it's just, too good to turn away. And I think in their case, it was probably too good to turn away. And so then they just leaned all the way in. And now we selling houses in Ghana.
So look, this is how we gonna send you home for the night, Amber. I call you Amber, my bad. See
it's okay.
My bad. So we got an actress up here, and we're gonna do some role play.
Oh,
and since
I hate the creative arts. I hate the creative arts. I'm not no cultural worker. I don't.
You named the budget. You named the budgetista, and you gave EYL some grace. They saw this and they was like, you know what? We need her on stage next year. So I'm going to be backstage with you, reminding you like, yo, you wrote this thing. And Cherie is going to represent how many people that you've experienced that investment. And you actually care about those people. And maybe the people on the stage don't care about them. And you have an opportunity to speak to these people. And so, but before you speak to them, I'm going to be backstage and I'm going to remind you. I'm gonna say, remember.
Why did I accept the invitation?
I don't know why you did it. Me and Jared forced you to. Me and Jared drove you there. We pushed you in the back room. You said, you going. This is our chance. So listen. I'm the director here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be in the back room with you. I'm saying, listen, and I mean, Erika. You know how y'all define financial literacy, and you talked about the ability to optimize financial decisions based on available resources. And you are thinking about the national and the world economic systems as you explaining this. So I want you to make sure when you go up there, like, we can't do no more this individual, get your bag right and do these things, but there's a systematic approach. So please do not forget who you are. As you said that they forgot who they are. Go out there and please lay this out. So now you're on stage and you're going to speak to Cherie, who's represent all these people who came to Atlanta for InvestFest, and you're gonna say what?
Do you and Jared pay for me a new outfit? What do I look like?
Yes, we got everything is decked out. We using CMB and BLM money. Let's go.
Oh, that's not a big budget. Okay.
Excuse me, Miss Erika. I want to know how can I be rich and fine and on my shit like you?
Thank you for recognizing that I am rich and fine and on my shit. I appreciate that. And y'all, it feels so good. The energy is so good in here. I love it. And actually, before I came out, as I was sitting in the audience, when I saw some of the presenters before me, it felt like church. Like, there's such a spirit that's happening. And I love this sense of community. And I love this sense of everybody coming together. But here's what I need us to focus on. Like, I've heard a lot of talk in here about us sort of doing these things, getting on our grind, right? Like, what is it? Rise and shine, or hustle, whatever it is. I've heard all of these things. And that is fantastic, right? Like if we're able, we should get out there and work and do all this. But the problem is that when we do that, we forget who we really are. And I want us to not forget who we really are. Because if we think about our grandparents and we think about our ancestors, they were successful because they worked together. They made it through some very trying times because they worked together. They overwhelmingly did not have a focus on themselves, they had a focus on the community. And so I know that, yes, we all want to achieve this idea of financial freedom and we want to have generational wealth. I know that is the goal and dream of all of us. But we have to understand that the key to this is not us individually, it is us getting back together. So instead of focusing on how we can individually make money, we should be trying to understand this system that keeps so many of us from being able to make any money. So while I'm very former church girl, love it, love the energy, love all the high energy and all the praise that's going on, I do want us to go back and focus on the basics. And I think the basics are us turning to each other, not upholding ourselves as the most important things, but trying to figure out what we can do all together to make us all better. Because liberation, which is what I'm after, is a group project.
So that's your audition. They're gonna call you next week. I'm gonna make sure the manager.
They're never gonna call me.
They're gonna call you.
They're never gonna call me.
I keep calling you Amber. Why do I keep calling you Amber?
It's okay. It's confusing. There are two Erikas. There are two Ambers. Amber's my homegirl. It does hurt a little bit because I've literally met you in real life.
I know. Well, you was using me to go. You was using me for your financial literacy game.
But wait, Erika, where are you located? Where do you live?
In Dallas.
Oh, got you.
In Beyonceville.
No, Beyonce from Houston.
Houston and Dallas, same thing. Beyonce control all the whole region.
So I know, not the same thing.
Listen, we appreciate you coming through. Thank you for sharing your love and your grace and your work.
I'm sorry, I have to become better at this whole idea of talking about my work, and I'm still working on talking about my work.
Wow, girl.
So yeah,
laid it out. Like I said, it's very basic. And like I said, for me, I mean, obviously I've looked at your work, I watched the show, but I just wanted to ask the general questions because I know, anybody is watching, I'm sharing people that may not really understand some of the gaps or the cons of this idea of financial literacy. So I think you really did a great job laying that out.
And for real, as I think about graduation and if I'll have more time and all this other kind of stuff, I would like to, see if there's something that I could do to help people with these things, because you have to do it. You just have to do it.
Yeah, get the work done, man.
I'll definitely. I got your email. You in the thread. I'm gonna contact you if I got to make a decision. Today they were talking about stocks at my job, but I just tuned them out because they said we're not gonna be up for stocks unless you're there for a year, and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it past the year mark. We gotta see about that.
We just trying to get you off probation.
I'm like, child, I don't know, but I think I'll make it. I don't know. We'll see. Things are always changing though, but I'll let you know if it, because I don't be knowing none of that language. That whole meeting, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. When you go in these jobs, they expect you to already have a certain. They're like this stock, and you get equity here, and I'm just like, what are y'all talking about?
Right. I want to know, when do the paychecks come? Right.
Guns and butters, stocks and bonds. Well, listen, we'll see you soon. I know you are always busy, but you can come back whenever you want to share your work. We appreciate your work.
Okay, thank you. I will. I appreciate the invitation. It was nice talking to y'all, and y'all have a good night.
All right, see you soon. So we have 32 down. Yusef is out today. Was stuck with work. He'll be back next week. But yeah, so we had this conversation. We've had this conversation probably a lot over the years. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that, and maybe even some of the pre-talk?
Yeah, I mean, connecting it to the pre-talk, I'm thinking, or maybe I should say it. Yeah, well, I'll get there. Yeah, connected to the pre-talk, like I said, I was thinking just about different cultures, and I definitely think that that's like especially in Atlanta, the whole generational wealth, financial literacy, financial freedom, like it's very cult-like, to me that there's always these events that are about this, and and people always land there sometimes if you have an everyday conversation with people, like you just be talking about something, like that's what we need to do this, and they don't teach us the financial literacy, and so it's a cult of thinking. And like I said, I really do, big ups to Erika for breaking down that particular cult of thinking, because like I said, I mean, we all have to exist, so I understand what she means by like not completely throwing everything out. But I think, the best thing that you can have in this system, for what it is somebody breaking down what's real to you or not. Like that there is a huge difference between somebody trying to sell you particular course, and you already don't have much to, even afford the course to begin with, versus somebody that's actually, a financial advisor, and you're in a place where you can actually go to a financial advisor and, and get that sort of advice. And and if you're not in that place, then like I said, that's a reflection of the system. It's not a reflection of you. And from what she's saying as far as community, the key is understanding these things, and putting and as an organizer, you put the pressure on the system with policy and whatnot. You try to get to that point where you can have that effect on policy that would change those things, and cut it off from the root. Because I think, like I said, we're very much, to me, it's a cult of, yeah, people will say that they're these prayer warriors or have all these different things, but they don't even know kind of where the root of the problem is. It's always like, well, pray for more money. It's never pray for a system in which you don't need that much money, to begin with. It's always just pray for the financial gain, pray for the wealth, pray for this. It's never, targeting the actual root of why all of these things exist. And I think the more people understand that, like that is really how you become radicalized and want to actually change things, because you realize, yeah, you yourself, you can always try to budget, do those things, but like you have to, if you love people and you love the Black community, like you realize the limitations of just being like, oh, we'll get financial literacy and stuff like that. So so yeah, so that I kind of connected to that cult of thinking. And then even what you were saying about, Hubert Harrison, and how, just even challenging those things, because we're supposed to think, oh, earn your leisure, they're trying to help people and they put niggas on, and we're supposed to have that thing. So even her kind of questioning that, or, and what we do on the platform overall, like I said, you'll be somewhat prosecuted for, trying to challenge people to get to a point where they're thinking beyond what they may see right in front of them. So yeah, those are just some of the initial thoughts that I think I have. Yeah.
Man, I was trying to go to the passage, so the two chapters, right? There's a chapter, and Jared was joking on me, but chapter 7 and chapter 8, like I highlight across everything. He said, "Geechee, we don't have to get you a highlight intervention because like you were supposed to highlight the whole page." And I'm like,
every book I've seen of yours looks like that, so I don't.
No, not all the books now. And this book right here, especially this part, it was just so much stuff. And I think he was even talking about, because he, sometimes he talked about like keeping the money inside the Black community. So Harrison almost talked about circulating in a particular way, but more the cooperative. But then he got to a point where he was like, pretty much the industries are controlled by them, and we only have like access to small little industries, and spending your money on haircuts and grease and whatever the case may be is not gonna actually do anything. But yeah, but it's just 2 minutes, and we'll get into it at the book talk. But kind of the same thing with me, like the financial literacy conversation. I think it would be dope for us to struggle for official definition, so that, and again, obviously there's so many different, like Erika was saying, but like if we were able to propagandize a concrete official definition and popularize that definition so that folks think of this when they think of financial literacy, that will be maybe one of the things, because at this point, like this having this conversation around it, it literally escapes the system and the larger that's why we say economic literacy or political literacy, because it's like the way it's defined now and the way it's used now, and it's always like, you have to take some responsibility. Like some of it's you, some of yours. And it's kind of like the reality, you don't have, bro, you ain't got no money. And if you don't get money, you're gonna have to go trade your labor for the money like the rest of us. You might have a different skill, or you have to convince other people who trade their labor to give you the money that they trade their labor for. So it's like at some point you have to realize that, two choices, both that one kill you insidiously and one kill you immediately, you arguing that you had a choice is probably going to get old soon. So you got to, at some point, grapple with it. That's not the case. So yeah, I think that conversation is always ongoing, but it has to be way in which it's packaged and way into our organizing space, right? The typical people we have a conversation, but even in our organizations, like there's a lot of, this reactionary arguments around things that we claim that we know, but we still kind of fall back. So you'll see, like, even as Harrison struggle with understanding like how circulating dollar doesn't do anything, he also, kind of had limitations around how he understands economics.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. No. When you say that, I'm thinking about a lot of stuff that's happening now when it comes to people that are, I guess, maybe surface level trying to like be organizers or activists. There's still a lot of like, I think, myths of just like what is actual power. Too, because you even look at, statuses going around about like, oh, y'all, we got Jimmy Kimmel to come back or whatever because we all deleted the Hulu. And then, and I'm just like, y'all don't understand that, like, Jimmy Kimmel was gonna come back. Like, I mean, I think people, it's the same thing with the Target boycotts. It's kind of like, if anything, that lesson should teach you how much deleting your Hulu is not an actual political action. Like, it was, you could do it. It's a personal choice. But I think people are really confused on like what actual organized political action even looks like, because they think so much power is in like the dollar, and where you put your dollars. And it's never actual action, because now it's like, well, I wish, we could have done the same thing for this person and this black person. And when Joy-Ann Reid got put off and did it, and it's just like, you're talking about a white man that has been on the networks for decades, and his particular power, even though that happened to him, like, yeah, there's so much more into why he's put back into the network than whoever deleted their Hulu account, like, and so to think that, like, and the same thing with Target. Oh, Target's losing money, but it still is like, where is the actual power? Like, what is, like, if we are, are we even capable of Target shutting down completely? And when Target does shut down completely, what happens to Walmart after that? Like, it's just like, people get so, I think, stuck in, okay, just not giving money, and, like, in that finance, they put so much on finances. So I do think having an actual definition of financial literacy is really important, as far as recreating or propagandizing a different way to look at what financial literacy is altogether. Because like I said, even people really want to get activated and heart is in the right place, like, it still just comes back to them only thinking their money is the power. And I just think that is very limiting in a capitalist system where there's always so much more people that have more power and are making these decisions for you. And it has nothing to do with your little bit of Target money at the store or your $10 a month or $20 a month subscription on Hulu,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna read a passage. I found it because when you think about, like, so again, Hubert was with the Socialist Party, they said class is the only focused thing. Hubert saying, yeah, that is true, but that means black folks would be the typical proletariat because they are the lowest class. So yes, we should focus on their class, but they wouldn't have a black the Negro question. They wouldn't engage it in a way that made Hubert comfortable there, and he saw that racism still was there. So moving to a people and understanding that although we have to be race first, we have to be very clear around class. And so at the time, W.A. Domingo was with the socialists as a black man, and him and A. Philip Randolph, they were like attacking Garvey when Hubert was over there. Hubert was like, nah, like you can't attack race first. This is still a good logic. It's that we're supposed to settle the thing with class, settle the conflict with class. So here's something that Domingo was writing back, because when they was tussling, it was like some heat at this point, right? So Domingo is speaking directly through Hubert. So both of them in newspaper, they're like the Emancipator and the Negro World, and they like writing back and beefing with each other like the rap battles, right? And Domingo agreed with Harrison regarding the defense nature of race first, because he was saying that race first comes from a defense nature. Like he developed race first, knowing that these class first folks don't actually think about black folks as the lower class, and they think race first. They mean white worker race first. And so he was like, race first, we would have to we with the right politics and class analysis, we also have to be race first. And so both of them are agreeing like, oh, this thing birthed out of defense that even the white radicals are not as radical, so we have to be even more radical, right? So when you think of Claudia Jones and the other people. So by the time you get there, however, Domingo argued, though, a black landlord and a black tenant may both face discrimination in public and should unite against it. How they chose to respond to housing issues would inevitably differ based on their class position, right? That black landlord is just like the white landlord if you want to get down with it. So while the Negro landlord and the tenant will both unite as to the necessity of fighting discrimination in places of public accommodation, at other times, the black tenant will unite with the white tenants to fight their landlord without regard to his race, color, creed, or sex. And black landlords will support white landlords who go to lobby the state legislator in Albany to see that rents are not reduced. In situations like these, he argued, the race interests of Negroes and Caucasians become confused and class interest applies. And because economic conditions and class positions shape one's access to the substance of life, such as food, clothing, and shelter, they cannot be ignored. And I'm going to read this last part too. So Domingo went on, he was arguing about the race first implies biological self-preservation. It does not mean the right of the shrewd and the unscrupulous ones of the race to plunder their fellows, right? In the hands of the UNIA, race first had begun taken beyond a sound defense posture into Garvey's project of duping and defrauding fellow black people in Domingo's view. As the original Negro World editor, Domingo, because Domingo was editing the Negro World, and he went over to the white socialists, and Harrison came from over there and went to the Negro World. So they going back and forth. Domingo's thinly veiled attacks on Garvey flowed from his own first experience working with Garvey and having to part ways with the UNIA for his socialist politics. In Domingo's words, a race must preserve itself, but it can best do so by seeking to abolish the economic conditions which makes biological continuity difficult. Race first should be received for the defense task of ensuring physical survival while also fighting for a classless society not based on racial oppression. So again, I think that conversation around like even the class within and how complex it is to even like struggle, like when we say the black businesses, those minorities set aside for businesses and those policies that damage the worker or damage the tenants, them black people will be benefit from that. And when the white boys go to lobby that, they're gonna be like, yeah, we want that. So it's kind of like a, yeah. I mean, I don't know what you think about it, but I think that contradictions allow us to go. And then even when you pull it down to the financial literacy thing, is like, again, these people who say like y'all black people are goofy with y'all money, y'all wasting your money, they're creating business and products that is essentially things that black people waste their money on. So it's like
they're creating whole courses that people are wasting their money on. Entire courses that they go pretend didn't exist 3 years later, because they're gonna be on to the next hot thing to sell you. So that, I think, that's the contradiction of it all, of like when people don't have, and I think that's the whole thing with the whole pro-black thing. And I think, to me, because it's like I'll talk to like these, when I get in these chats, and I haven't done it in a while, just to argue with people or whatever on TikTok and whatnot. But what I always try to explain to them is like, my pro-blackness or love for black people or whatever, like that's what brought me to the focus of class analysis. It's just like, the more you love black people, the more you start to listen to the things that people are saying is supposed to help us, and then seeing that how it's not really helping us, And so I think what made me become a socialist was, starting to myself notice like how this black business thing, this circulate the black dollar thing, is not moving us anywhere. And then realizing, okay, black capitalism isn't going to save us like that, getting kind of understanding that is what kind of led me to, into Dr. Ball's, content and, and the myth and propaganda of black buying power. But I think, I think it's those things that people don't realize. They just look at it as like, oh, well, now you're, this leftist, and it's not about, as if you don't, care about, being pro-black. And I think because you don't care about black elitism, people can kind of view it as like, oh, well, you're, not as pro-black or something anymore, or whatever, into their gaze or whatever. But I think it's just the more you really care about black people, like you have to care about the actual condition. And when people get so focused on just black, like they end up supporting things that are not black, like, because they're like, I just want to see black people doing well. I just want to see black people getting money. And then it's just like, well, it's a lot of black landlords getting money and gentrifying Atlanta, so it's like, when you get stuck on those things, like you're bound to like eventually be stuck. So I think you're supporting things that in the end that aren't necessarily helping people, and you end up aligning. And that's what we had to explain to that guy that was saying that crap at that Earn Your Invest Fest or whatever, being like Malcolm X was a great businessman. That's why we that's why it's just like, and it's the whole thing was like, that wasn't even the person you was talking about. You talking about Elijah Muhammad or whatever, but okay, like but it's like, it's still wrong even if you want to go there. So it's just kind of like, yikes. But it's just amazing me kind of how people will look at those things and just never get to a point where they see the connecting to, and how it ends, and you end up in a cycle. But it makes me also, not to go on, I'm sorry, but it makes me also very curious about this show and doing this show in Atlanta, where I have so many of like, my friends, family, parents, friends, that are like business people or real estate people and all those things, like how they will receive the things that I'm talking about, in the beginning, when I talk about financial literacy and generational wealth, and how in the moment in the show, it's talked about like it's a positive thing, but towards the end of the show, it's greatly challenged. So it's just kind of like, I'm just curious to like, if people will even, open their ears to that, or how people will receive it, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So we, as we wrap, we're gonna pull up all the three events that's coming up, and we'll talk about each of them. So before that, as we talked about Hubert Harrison at Create ATL Tuesday, Tuesday coming up at 7 to 9, we'll be in conversation with My brother Brian Quoble, he just texted me and said he got to town, and so he's going to be here for a little while, and then I think there's a conference going on too. And then we'll be in conversation with Datricia, who's an oral historian. Again, Create ATL on the 30th, 7 p.m. West Atlanta. You'll get to see our shrimp cooperative that we're building out over there as well. So if you're in Atlanta, come through. If you're not, send your folks through. And then, Cherie, you want to go ahead and explain the next one?
And then we got the cultural workers, got something to say coming up October 3rd, my mama's birthday, through October 5th. We got 2 shows happening at 7 p.m. That's the 3rd and the 4th. That will be happening at 7 p.m. And then the Sunday matinee will start at 1 p.m. Y'all that's coming, come early because parking is a little interesting. So come early. But yeah, we got my show and then Jihad show, and then we're gonna have a talk back that is moderated by the best talker on this network.
Because who?
The best talker.
Oh man, why I gotta be a best talker? That's
the
bad.
best talker. You get to the point. You say the stuff that needs to be said. So we gotta have the GOAT. We gotta have the GOAT hosting the
Somebody gonna use that and say all I do is talk. See?
No, it means that you know when to talk. I think a lot of people can go on.
First they said I ain't shit, all I do is read. Now they say all I do is talk. I'm like, God.
You're the best talker and you sharp on your political education. That's why I selected him to lead this this talk back after the show. So yeah, y'all come out. Remember, tickets are sliding scale. Please tell people that you know that's in Atlanta or in the Atlanta area to come out. You can also get here by train at the College Park train station is right next door to that. But yeah, it's gonna be a dope 2 nights, 1 day. Come out and support it.
That's nice. And then the last one, another book talk on Morehouse campus at the African American Hall of Fame. So it's the chapel, that big building with the Martin Luther King statue at the top of that building. The African American Hall of Fame will be discussing Beneath the Mountain, which is an anti-prison reader edited by Mumia Abu-Jamal and also Jennifer Black. What we'll be doing is having 5 or 6 people from AUC. We'll have some Spelman representation students. We'll have Morehouse representations and Clark. We was trying to get Morris Brown in there, but they don't. I don't know where they at. But they'll be coming in reading some passages that resonate with them. We're going to send them the book beforehand. They read the passage, and then we'll just have a larger discussion. And then we'll have an update on Mumia, and we actually might hear from Mumia too at the beginning of the event. So if you are in Atlanta or around Atlanta, know somebody at any of those campuses, make sure you send those folks to this book talk. This is going to be on a Thursday, October the 30th at 7 p.m. as well. So a couple things going on in Atlanta. Anything else you want to share before we bounce?
No, that's all. Just come to our stuff, guys. Support the cause. Politicize your family members. You know?
So look, man, we appreciate y'all for tuning in. Episode 32. See you again next week. So peace.
Peace. If you will.